we got it all, honestly. Not only do we have the cultural heritage, such as our archaeological site, our rock art, and our museum to see artifacts, but we have other stuff that people can enjoy, the whole family can enjoy. So if you got museum enthusiasts, but ones that don't want to see the museum, we've got hiking for you. We've also have camping. We've got 2 campgrounds. And then we also have a massive off-highway vehicle or OHV trail system that surrounds the park and into the Fish Lake National Forest that's around us as well.
Greetings from Fremont Indian State Park in Sevier, Utah.
We are at the Stowe Canyon Campground, where we have been camp hosts for 4 months. We got here in May. It's now September. I cannot believe how fast this summer went.
It was like this, and it was over.
We have had a blast. If you've been watching our channel, we've been using this as our base camp as we have explored Utah, and we actually put together a Utah playlist, so you can go find that on our channel and check out all the national and state parks we visited. I think because we've been living here for 4 months, we're a little bit biased about how great we think this park is, but I think one of the reasons this summer went so fast is just at this park alone, there are so many things to do.
Yeah, we obviously, if you've watched the channel, we have chucked off like everything there is to see and do in Utah. And honestly, we haven't even scratched the surface because my to-do list is still like a mile long.
Well, because you check one thing off and then somebody's like, have you done this and this? So you add 2 more.
So we're never going to get all of Utah, but we have managed to check off pretty much everything there is to do here at Fremont Indian State Park. And so we want to talk a little bit about what there is to do here, because even though this is a park that many of you have probably never heard of, we think it's definitely someplace that you should come and visit because it's really cool.
It has a lot of things to do. It has a lot of things to do for different people depending on what you like to do. So let's back up just a little bit and give a real quick history lesson. We're outside the town of Sevier, Utah. This park is right off of I-70. It's actually really easy access from 2 different exits on I-70. But I will note, it's far enough away and I-70 is quiet enough, particularly at night. It's not really a noise problem. I've not noticed that at all. So when they were building I-70 through this area, the locals told them, well, what about the Native American settlement and things that have been found up on what was known as Five Finger Ridge? And that set off all kinds of alarm bells. And so they had to go and do an archaeological dig up on Five Finger Ridge and ended up discovering a village from the Fremont Indian culture, which is, they were here, what, 1,000 years ago, right?
Yeah, like 1,000 to 1,500 AD is about the time frame, give or take a bit.
We actually talked to Liz, who is the curator and archaeologist here, so she's going to have more official details because she remembers all of that a lot better than we do. But they ended up doing this excavation and captured a lot of different things and cataloged a lot of different things that they now have in their museum. And then, unfortunately, when the state came through and the federal government and built I-70, they took out most of Five Finger Ridge.
Yeah,
I think the pinky is left at this point of the Five Fingers, so that's unfortunate. But that also is why this park exists, because it was determined that they should have a place to not only house in a museum the artifacts that they discovered, but there is a huge amount of petroglyphs and pictoglyphs, all kinds of rock imagery and rock art is in this area, and that is now saved and preserved within this state park.
The mission of Fremont Indian State Park is to preserve, protect, and allow the public to enjoy what we offer. So we have a lot here, and they get a chance to come and see what once was and what is now. Back in 1985 is when it was legislatively mandated, and then 87 is when the park officially opened its doors to the public. So it took a couple of years to get those artifacts here. Yeah, the freeway is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because they ran through so quick. And the section of road that we're driving on now is known as Old Highway 4. It was one of the last sections to go from the old highway to the new interstate because of the archaeological aspect of what they found when they came through this canyon. What makes Fremont Indian State Park special is it got a really neat recreational ability here. So people that like historical stuff can come, people that like to ride ATVs can come, people that like to fish can come, people that like to just get away from the busyness, this is still a spot for that. So we've got a lot of those opportunities that some of the other parks are a little busier, a little more specific with a boating specific or something along those lines. We have a little of everything. Thousands of miles of ATV trail accessible right here from Fremont Indian State Park. You can access it from the campground. You can access it along the access road in the park. It's all open to off-highway vehicle use. The trail that's right here behind us is called the Max Reed Trail. It is one of the few out of the park that is a 50-inch restricted width one, but most of the trails on the trail system you can ride with the wider machines. Takes you to some neat historical spots on top of the mountain. It's a really fun area. People ought to come and visit. Day use here in the park is probably one of the most popular things. So we have an area here that we're parked just outside of. There's a historical cabin, and this represents an old homestead, the Lots homestead, that was back in the day. And now visitors can come and enjoy this area during the day as a picnic area. We even offer occasionally a movie in the park here on this wonderful grass area. And so it's an opportunity for people just to get out and see what we can offer and get out of the hot sun in the summer months. People are always worried about temperatures here. The average temperature, even in July, is only around 90 degrees. So it's not that 120 that St. George might get.
Usually when you visit a state park, you're only there for a few days. Usually a weekend, oftentimes a week, but that's about it. We've had 4 months to explore Fremont Indian State Park. I think we've hiked all the trails that are here in the park. We've also hiked quite a few of the trails that surround the park that are in the Fish Lake National Forest, because that extends for like hundreds of miles. We've, looked at all the petroglyphs. We've gone on ATV rides a couple different times because, as Ari said, there are hundreds of miles of ATV trails in and around the National Forest in the park. We have not gone fishing, but I have waded in the creek a little bit. You just have to watch, because when it rains around here and when the snow melts, it can get really muddy and that river can go really fast. So you've got the Clear Creek, but you also have the Sevier River that it runs into. And so there's a lot of activities in the area where you can go tubing or kayaking. So in those 4 months, we have checked off a lot of things because, well, it's nice when you can spend some time in an area and actually really get to know all of it.
I'm Liz Stevens. I actually am the curator and archaeologist for Fremont Indian State Park. And that's where we're here, and where we're standing today is in the exhibits for our museum. We're going to talk a little bit about Fremont. So we always get asked, what does the name mean? Who are the Fremont? The Fremont are actually an archaeological classification, or an archaeological culture. So we call them a culture. They are not a singular tribe. The reason we do that is because it's more of an umbrella term that actually encompasses a wide spread of people that had similarities in their pottery style, their basketry, their rock art, and then as well as a couple of more living spaces, so like their pit houses. So we're looking at the time period about around 100 AD to about 1300 AD, they were existing in Utah. Now, at our Clear Creek Canyon area, we're looking more at 600 AD to about 1300 AD. We think that the height of that occupation, or the height of that village, actually occurred at the turn of the century. So it had the most people living in it at about 1100 AD to about 1300 AD. But there's always a misconception of, where did they go after 1300 years? Well, they did not go extinct, but what they did is they just abandoned their sites in Utah, and they actually assimilated or moved into other areas of the Southwest, and more than likely interacted with a lot of who our modern tribes are today, such as the Ute, the Hopi, the Zuni, and the Pueblo, of course. The type of displays and stuff that you can see in our museum are going to be a lot about how they process their food. So you're going to see a lot of manos and metates, like the one behind me here. You're also going to see some dioramas of what the archaeological site would have looked like before it was excavated or destroyed. And then we have a lot of material culture. And so we have sandals and moccasins. We have some atlatls and some spears, a lot of lithics, or what we call stone tools. Pottery, there's a lot of reconstructed pottery. So these are 1,000-year-old artifacts. And that's what you're going to see in our museum. And it'll help you learn about the Fremont. Now we're outside of the museum in our state park. Not only are we known for our archaeological site and our artifacts or our camping even, but we're known for our rock art. So we are actually next to 9 Mile Canyon. We are the highest concentration of rock art in the central part of the state. And so we have over 3,000 recorded rock art sites in our canyon or in our park alone, but there's much more outside of our park in the same canyon. It's a very high concentration. The majority of it is going to be Fremont rock art. So there are 3 different types of rock art that we talk about. Petroglyphs, which are carved into the side of the rock, and that's what you're seeing behind me. We also have pictographs, which are painted, such as our Cave of 100 Hands that you can see on a hike while you're here. And then we have a rare kind, which is the pictoglyph. Now that is carved and painted in the same motif. And we actually don't have a lot of those recorded in Utah. I'm sure there's more out there, but there's only 9 recorded currently. 7 of them are in our park, while 2 of them are in 9 Mile Canyon. So we're pretty lucky in that sense. And so you can see a couple of those on the road when you're here visiting the park.
In terms of the hiking trails that are here at Fremont Indian State Park, most of them are easy to moderate, and almost all of them start right at the museum. So you can go park there and then head out on a hike. There is a paved trail right behind the museum that is ADA accessible, and then there are a few other trails, the longest of which is like maybe a half a mile. You can combine it for a longer loop, but you are going kind of straight up the cliff because, well, it's Utah and therefore everything is uphill. But then it affords you some really pretty views of like the entire canyon area and Clear Creek. And so it's really cool to kind of, if you can do that, to go up those hikes. Again, they're not strenuous or complicated by any means. It's just a dirt path that's going like straight up a hill.
I do like, though, because we are essentially surrounded in a lot of sides by the Fish Lake National Forest, you can actually take those trails behind the museum. And if you wanted to take a longer time, you could either connect them all and kind of go up and down. We've done that actually. Yeah. Or I went out by myself actually one day when you were out of town, and I connected to a Fish Lake National Forest trail and just kept going for quite a while. And so you could kind of, it's a choose your own adventure. We've said that about a lot of places in Utah, and I think that it describes the state really well. But you can do that here.
Yeah, there's a lot of options, and you just have to ask for a map, like at the front desk or at one of the local tourism sites, for like the Fish Lake National Forest trail map, the ATV trail map, and then the museum hiking trail map. So a lot of different options here.
There is a lot of information available at the museum and visitor center. So make sure you stop in there. The staff here is great. They have maps. They have a lot of ideas. Most of them have lived in this area for years, and they can give you kind of tips and tricks and hints of where you should go see things and how you should get there. And then they also do programs, and we've actually gotten involved in one pretty regularly that you've especially enjoyed, and that is the Scorpions and Stars program that they do periodically here at night.
I've had an absolute blast participating in the Stars and Scorpions program. So essentially what they do is, as it gets dusk, they bring everybody together up at the museum. They do a short talk kind of on the background of scorpions, why they fluoresce, some tales and Greek origin stories of them. And then we go out and we find there's a really dark hill that we go to, and you take a blacklight flashlight and you can just like shine that flashlight up and down the hill and see the scorpions. And the ones that are here in the park, they're really tiny. They're only about like an inch, maybe 2 inches long at the most. They're pretty cute. And it's always a blast watching the little kids try to find them, because I think when you hear the word scorpion, everybody freaks out. But once you put that flashlight in hands, it's a blast to watch the kids go up and down the hill trying to find, these glow-in-the-dark scorpions. And then, as long as it's a cloudless and moonless night, we get a really, really, really clear view of the night sky and the Milky Way and all of the stars. And so then we'll usually do a little program that kind of talks through the different constellations in the sky and what you can see on any given night. And so that's one of the most popular programs here at the state park. They usually do it once or twice a month.
And this is an official international dark sky park. It took them about 2 years or so worth of work to get that designation, where they've changed the lighting that they use. They changed the way the lighting is, the temperature of the lights they use, the way they're faced, all kinds of stuff that you do to meet that program program's requirements, and they've been able to do that here. And it is a really dark sky. And I mean, you can go out to this very dark hill where we go find scorpions, but we have had some beautiful dark skies right here at Stowe Campground in this canyon that we're in. And I would say, you mentioned, you know, if it's a moonless night, you can see more stars. The other thing that's really cool is when the moon comes up over the ridge here, a full moon, and lights up the canyon wall like a spotlight gets turned on. That is just beautiful. We've had people standing out taking pictures of the moon on the canyon, I think, more than the stars. So that's been incredible.
You're right. That is really cool.
That is really cool. Stowe Campground is one of the 2 campgrounds here. That's the ones we have been the camp hosts at. It is full hookup sites. It's small. We only have 10 sites if the group site's not being used, because they have a group site you can book. If the group site is not being used, we split it up into individual campsites and you can book those individually. But that's a full hookup with 50, 30, and 20 amp at every site, plus water and sewer. And it's been a great deal. People have loved it. We have, obviously, we have bathrooms and showers on site. They have a laundry room on site, so you can get, your clothes
the
washed.
laundry is a big bonus because not every park has that.
Yeah, that is a big bonus here. And so this is a really nice full hookup, but you're tucked away in a canyon. It's just, it feels very rustic, but you have full hookups.
Well, and we have so many visitors come through and campers who say they'd never heard of it before. It just happened to be they were driving on I-70, going maybe to Las Vegas, and needed a place overnight. And so they stopped here, and then they're like, oh, we've got to be back. And so now we're starting to hear from campers who said, oh yeah, I stopped here 2 years ago and I made it a point to actually come back and stay here for a few days and check it out because it is so gorgeous. And so that's like, we hear that over and over again from campers who didn't even know it existed. And now many of them are returning customers.
And that's always great to hear. The other campgrounds, a few miles down the road, is Castle Rock. And it is called that because it has very different types of formations. It has rocks that look like castle formations in their campground. That is a rustic campground, very much tucked into the woods. I know I put up the drone one day trying to get some different shots of the park, and I was trying to shoot that campground. I'm like, you can't see the campsites because there's so many trees, which is unusual in Utah.
Yeah,
so
we're in the desert.
It's really actually part of the Fish Lake National Forest, but the state runs that campground. That is all rustic. So there's no hookups. There is potable water available, and they do have pit toilets available, but that is it. And the other thing that's there, though, is that campground actually connects to the Joe Lot Trail, which we've done a video on, and I'll put a link to that. That was a neat trail that we did, and a great day hike out doing that. So depending on what kind of rig you have, depending on what type of camping you like to do, you have plenty of options. I was going to mention, too, both campgrounds, if you don't have a tent or an RV and want to stay here at Stowe, there are 2 cabins are available, and there is a recreation of a Fremont pit house that you can stay in. That is very unique, and nowhere else are you going to find that.
No, and people love staying in the pit house. I think at first they're a little apprehensive because they don't really know what it means. And a lot of us, when you think pit, you think like a pit toilet. And so people are like, I'm going to go stay where? But it's just what they call them, because a pit house essentially with the Fremont was they would dig down into the dirt, the base of their structure, and then build rocks and mud and logs over top. And so it was essentially a pit, and you crawled down from the top is how they got into it through a ladder. Now, we don't make you crawl through the top to get down into your dwelling. We have a lovely door that you can go through. But we've sort of recreated that entry with the skylight. And so in the pit house, you've got a nice skylight. You've got, I think, you can sleep up to like 6 people in it. It's really nice. It's really cool. My parents stayed in it when they came and visited us this summer. And we have a lot of returning campers who specifically asked to stay in the pit house because, as Ari said, you can't find that at any other state park.
And then over at Castle Rock, if you don't have your own equipment, they have teepees over there that you can rent and stay in. So that's also kind of a neat experience to be able to do that.
Both campgrounds are really nice. Again, we only have 10 sites here, but there's about 30 sites over at Castle Rock. So whether you want full hookups or you want a boondocking experience, you've got a little bit of everything here depending on, your group size and just the kind of camping that you'd like to do.
People have called this the hidden gem. And so they find it and they don't want to share it with anybody else, but they do return. They keep coming back again and again and again because they think it's that nice serenity type place where they can enjoy something that they found that's still quiet.
One really nice thing about the location of Fremont Indian State Park is you're about 3 hours or less from pretty much everything, whether that's Utah's Mighty 5 National Parks, Salt Lake City, Great Basin National Park in Nevada. You've got I-70 right here and Highway 89, which take you pretty much anywhere you want to go in Utah, making it super convenient for you to use this as a base camp to kind of hop around to see all the things there are to do in Utah.
And we've kind of talked about it. You feel like you're in this canyon, you're sort of isolated in the middle of nowhere here, which is a really nice feature of it. But if you need supplies, the town of Richfield is 24 miles away, and it's right down I-70, so it's not that bad of a trip. And they have everything that you would need. They have gas there. They have a really great local grocery store. They have a Walmart. They have a Home Depot. So if you need supplies, it's not that far away. Get them on your way in, your way out, whatever you would need. It's not a bad trip at all.
I would recommend Ideal Dairy. It's a really great ice cream place because you know me and my ice cream. So it's a local Utah dairy store. They also have a movie theater, so it is a decent sized town if you're coming through the area and need supplies.
It's a place to continue your national ice cream tour if you're like this one.
Our 4 months here in Utah just flew by. We really enjoyed our time here in Utah. We enjoyed our time camp hosting at Fremont Indian State Park. The staff here is amazing. And so if you're ever thinking about camp hosting, I'm sure they would love to have you here as well because they're always looking for people to help out during the summer. And if you have any questions about camp hosting, we'd be more than happy to talk to you about that because we've done it in a couple places and it's a great experience and gets you to some places that you probably wouldn't have gone otherwise.
The team here is awesome. It feels like a small family. I feel like we got adopted by the family because we were here for so long. You may not get to spend 4 months here at Fremont Indian State Park, but if you can get here for a weekend to check out the park, maybe a week or more to check out this park and all of the great things to do in Utah and the surrounding area, we highly recommend Fremont Indian State Park. So get here if you can. In the meantime, keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there.